Chapter 9. The Lover Memes. Back in the glade at the end of the Valley of the Gypsies, Jacille danced her circle dance, wriggling her hips at the filthy bastards she'd been tracking and observing for the last 20 moons, and flicked them a sultry smile as they admired her graceful and lithe body dressed in a colourful and flowing silk skirt tied with a gem-encrusted belt at the hip. She hated the fact that her breasts were bare, but she had a job to do. As she danced around the campfire, she started to feel a bit dizzy and could feel a rage she didn't know she was capable of starting to rise from her gut chakra. It was rising quickly now as she watched the leader of the gypsies, a big, barrel-chested brute who'd tried, and failed, many times to drag her to his bed. Occasionally she found it necessary to let him have his way, just so that the rest of the gypsies would leave her alone. She hated this seduction. He was a filthy, dirty brute and smelled like he hadn't washed since she'd first come across this particularly nasty gang. In fact, she was pretty sure he'd never had a bath in his whole life. He'd always been a violent man and very quick to explode into rage on a good day. Today was very quickly turning into a bad day, she thought, as the brute grabbed his mate, dragged him to his feet, and threw a solid punch at him. As the rest of the gang gathered around quickly to watch the fight, Jacille slowly realised that she had been poisoned. Luckily, she had only had a small sip of the mead from the brute's cup as she sipped lasciviously from it, licking her lips, projecting lust in her eyes, and flicking her hair back to allow the pheromones in her armpits to waft over him, working their charm, and enchanting him to the point where he actually thought that she loved him. As the fight started to break out into a brawl, Jacille fell to her knees and slowly crawled away from the melee and towards the edge of the camp, where she slumped down behind a large tree. She could still feel the rage building inside her and quickly started to breathe it out, calming her nerves and slowing down her heart until the rage subsided enough to her to think clearly. The noise from the gypsy fight was horrifying, so she instructed her biotronics to mute the sound completely so that she could focus on the poison. Next, she expanded her active shield and thought it into the shape of the forest floor, effectively creating a small cocoon that hid her from prying eyes. Closing her eyelids, she went deep inside herself and started to look for the poison. It didn't take long. The nanotech disassemblers were able to quickly identify the difference between her reference database and the infected brain cells before deconstructing the poisonous molecules into their constituent atoms. It then took a few ticks more for the replicating assemblers to reconstruct the affected cells from her last backup procedure, before performing a final sweep and quality control protocol. Reviewing the logs, she found it was a highly toxic molecule which was attaching itself to specific mirror cells in her human brain stem and instructing them to produce massive quantities of adrenaline, endorphins, dopamine, and testosterone. It had also infected cells in her cerebral cortex with a sequence of psychotropic molecules that, if she hadn't stopped them, would have given her an exceptionally horrifying experience considering some of the monsters she had fought and conquered in her travels. She stored the molecular pattern of the toxin in a deep store filament alongside a few other patterns she had picked up throughout her long career in the First Contact Division. This was part of the job she hated the most, she thought, trying to help civilizations realize that if they wanted to join the party, they'd have to learn how to behave. If Jacille and her team couldn't do it, Zero had already decided that the Shiva protocol should do the trick. It was already evolved, calibrated, and ready to be compiled. But Jacille had insisted that they should give humanity one last chance to deal with the problem itself. Zero had reluctantly agreed after she made an impassioned appeal and convinced the rest of her team to back her up. Besides, Zero quite liked her circle dance, and she promised to put on a good show when she returned from her mission. Instructing her nanotronic implants to get ready for battle, she extended her left hand into a sharp blade that could cut through rock as if it was butter. At its edge was some highly optimized disassemblers that could cut through large blocks of diamond with relative ease. Jacille then opened her eyelids and brought her visual sensors back online, widening the range to include infrared at the lower end of the spectrum and ultraviolet at the top end. Onto this she overlaid a simple 4D terrain map pattern, overlaid with multicoloured data sets, configured to monitor the field and display the deltas. She then released a swarm of monofilament nanoprobes into the field of play through the electromotive railgun in her right forearm. Exiting from her forefinger, the stream of nanoprobes quickly spread throughout the glade, completely undetectable to the naked eye. They mapped every significant physical object and uploaded the data set to the extended model of reality display in the field of vision in her mind's eye. As she observed the display, she could see a single human walking among the gypsies, most of whom were already dead from their internal fighting. She saw how quickly and efficiently the slim and well-muscled man used his spear to dispatch the remaining gypsies. It seemed odd to her that one of the gypsies would be killing his compatriots, but as she zoomed in for a closer look and passed the images through her Babbage difference engine, no matches were found. So he wasn't one of the gypsies, but he was dressed in their clothes. Once she was confident that the battle was effectively over, she muted the rainbow colours of the Emor to a dull green glow and withdrew her active shield to fit the contours of a human body once again and gave it a healthy amber glow. Rising slowly behind the tree and then peering slowly around the side of it, she could see the man with his back to her, carefully planting some colourful toadstools near one of the dead gypsies before he stood up and started to turn in the direction of the path leading out of the glade, presumably to follow the other humans her nanoprobes are now monitoring and extending into her extended model of reality display. She counted over 100 people slowly trudging through the bush, back the way they had come the previous day. It took Jacelle a few moments to activate and properly calibrate the photonic transducers embedded in the matrix of her active shield. They were still a little bit flaky and could definitely do with a bit more evolution, but so far they were able to bend the light around her shield reasonably enough to make her virtually invisible. Observing herself from the swarm of nanoprobes in the glade, she could see a hazy, shimmering, translucent outline where her body was, showing the bush behind her. The man paused for a moment. For a fluttering heartbeat, she thought that he might have sensed her, but after waiting a few more ticks, she concluded that it must be jangled nerves, causing her to be overly sensitive. Restoring the visuals from her eyes to the primary display at the front of her mind and several feeds from the swarm into the smaller rear, side, top and bottom displays, Jacelle then brought her active shield up to full power and reconfigured the flexible diamond, graphene and sapphire matrix with its embedded electromotive actuators to give her almost 20 times the speed and strength of a typical human being. She hated the fact that she would have to kill him, but that was her job. Taking a slow, deep breath, she timed her attack to coincide with the man's projected trajectories. Without hesitation, she then began her run. With the assistance of her active shield, she covered the length of the glade in 3 springing steps before launching herself at him, her left hand blade aiming right for the centre of his neck to sever his spinal cord in one quick move. To her surprise, the man was able to duck his head out of the way just in time, and her blade slipped by the side of his neck, barely missing a few wispy hairs that were standing on end. Before she could bring her blade around to do the job from the front, she felt her arm being grabbed by both of his hands. As he bent at the waist, Jacelle could do nothing, as the momentum of her run and the added energy of his shoulder throw combined to flick her unceremoniously across the glade. That was interesting, she thought, as she landed on her feet after a reverse barrel roll and quickly deactivated the photonic transducers so that the man would be able to see her. She had never come across a human with such lightning-fast reflexes and the strength to deal with an enhancer with a fully active shield configured for battle. Clearly, the force is strong in this one, she thought, as she looked into his eyes and reconfigured her sensors to display high-energy Gaia fields overlaid onto her primary display. As the image quickly recovered itself, she could see bright purple streams of energy surrounding his body. Yes, indeed, she thought, the force is most definitely strong in this one. Besides that, he had very nice eyes. As they stared at each other, Jacelle slowly let out a breath of air, blowing some optimized nanoprobes in his direction. As they entered his body and began to deconstruct and analyze his water, she continued to hold his gaze, watching as he too relaxed a bit, aided by the calming hormones her nanobots were now constructing and releasing into his bloodstream. It didn't take the man long to calm down. He was clearly exhausted, tired, hungry, and alone. As strong as the force was in this one, he was no match for her even if he was at full strength. Killing a man who was already dead on the inside wasn't her style. No honour, no integrity, and no fun at all. She decided to let him live and see what happened. She could always finish the job later if she needed to. Allowing her own emotions to calm down, she projected a smile into her eyes and coyly smiled at him. He returned the smile easily, and within a heartbeat she knew that they would be friends. And if he played his cards right, they might even be lovers, she thought. It had been a while since she'd been able to love, such were the demands of her job, and so far this one had been a bitch. She felt sure Zero would forgive her for having a little fun for a while. After all, there were no gypsies to keep track of anymore, at least not in this neck of the woods. She doubted it would take long for the next caravan to come through the area. Once they did, she'd then allow herself to be captured by them so that she could continue with her mission. She chatted briefly with Zero over the ultraband link as she uploaded the remaining datasets on a secured subchannel, seeing him as a dancing plasma field of dark purple energy at the edge and bright pink light at the centre, wobbling in time with his music. He positively glowed when she gifted him the image of her tumble through the glade. Count Zero loved surprises, and it wasn't often that Jacille failed in her first attack run. If he had a body, Jacille felt sure that he'd be laughing his ass off. In reply, he projected that he couldn't wait to experience her next circle dance, telling the story of the Valley of the Gypsies. With a little help from her embedded nanotech assemblers, Jacille had been able to keep Sol alive for about 500 orbits before he finally succumbed to old age and death that even her enhanced or optimized nanotech couldn't deal with. Essentially, the problem was that after such a long lifetime for a human, Sol's brain was full. If she only had more time, she thought, she might have been able to get him on board the ship and into biostasis, ready to be relifed once their mission was complete, and reprofiled to accept her culture's enhancer technology. Sadly, it wasn't to be. Zero was adamant. He'd tried so many times before to upload human consciousness into the nanotronic systems at the heart of the ship, but they just couldn't handle it. Even when they slowed down the clocks to a crawl, a nanotronic simulation was many thousands of times faster than human neural networks. Every time they had tried, the human consciousness had spiraled out of control, thoughts crashing into each other, words getting jumbled up, and simulated hormones running amok and causing an overflow of memes to express themselves all at once. You didn't need to be a head doctor to know that it couldn't have been a pleasant experience for the conscious mind they were hosting. They even had tried simulating pleasant physical environments, calming hormones, and perfect bodies, but in the end it always came to the same thing. These humans were definitely odd in some way. It would probably take many grand cycles until their brains would be evolved enough to interface with culture technology. During the long walk back home to his village, and while they celebrated into the night, Jacille silently observed Sol through a nanoprobe hovering nearby. She opened up a near-field channel to the nanoprobes and networked swarm commanders that she had constructed throughout his body, and instructed them to sense the various nerve impulses and emotes from his primitive brain. As she continued her circle dance, she felt him hugging his friends and family, everyone with glad tears of joy in their eyes, and their Gaia fields resonating a bright aqua blue-green with flashes of golden light spontaneously flying around the group, leaping from person to person like showers of sparks from a campfire whenever a big log was thrown on it. She had never felt such strong feelings before, except perhaps from her first actual death when she had woken up in Zero's bed the next morning and smelled the delicious aroma of his coffee wafting into the room. She was, well, a bit confused, to say the least. Seeing and feeling Sol overdosing on love was about as close to being with Zero as she had ever experienced in a very long life since she had joined culture. It was an amazing, humbling, and, well, lovely experience. She could sense that Zero was enjoying it too, as they emoted that it was okay to let him live a little longer. Their data sets would bring a healthy profit once they edited them, recompiled them, and submitted them to consensus for the enjoyment of their mates. Jacille sensed Sol's exhaustion as she watched him say a final goodnight and make his way to his hut. She quickly finished her cola, swallowed a large swig of the village's delicious mead, and went to him, knowing that her audience would really love what was coming next. Sol had given her 3 children in the first 100 cycles. The first was Athena, who had inherited Jacille's biotronic upgrades along with Sol's good looks and lovely eyes that sparkled with blue and purple light. Thankfully, Athena's genome was also compatible with Jacille's nanotechnique. and she was soon able to craft her own weapons of choice. She had an active imagination, and it took Giselle much time and effort to teach the young Athena how to properly control her base impulses, many of which were inherited from Sol, and some were remembered from Giselle's previous missions on faraway planets. The villagers didn't take too kindly to Athena's fascination with dragons, for one thing. The memory of Giselle's previous life on Pern must have been at the forefront of her mind when the General Systems vehicle arrived in system and uploaded her complete data set. Athena's other efforts at recontouring her body were hilarious, though, especially at the villagers' full moon parties, where Athena delighted everyone by shape-shifting through a colourful rainbow of beasts, demons, monsters, and for fun, into a copy of Sol himself. Sol hated it, meeting himself every full moon, and even he could see the funny side of her playful humour. God knows what an outsider would think of our full moon parties, he wondered. It had taken Sol long enough to get his head around the idea that his wife and daughter were a little bit different. Giselle had tried to explain it to him a few times, but he just didn't get it. The shaman said that Giselle was a witch, and that what she and Athena could do was magic. Good magic, though, and nothing to worry about, but best that the village keep it a secret, just in case. That suited Giselle and Athena too, so it was agreed. Next came the twins, when Athena was already in her prime and nearly ready to contemplate her own projects, adventures, and impossible missions. Sadly, though, the little boy and girl didn't make it past their first few hours in reality. They had even consented names and default personalities for the new souls. One emoted to be a boy called Maxim, and the other mind evolved to be a girl called Amelie. Sol was unaware of this consensus because his brain simply wasn't capable of processing the communications protocols, let alone the experience. They agreed it would be a nice surprise for everyone when they were born, and Giselle knew that many of her audience would never have experienced what it's like to not know the gender of one's offspring before they arrived. It was a difficult birth, even with the assistance of her enhancer technology and the competent shaman whom Giselle had befriended many moons ago and trained in midwifery among other skills. Giselle had desperately tried to reintegrate her biotronic systems with theirs over both the near field and the ultraband networks, but it was clear that the autocompiler was struggling to match patterns and instruct the swarm commanders. There just weren't enough reference points, and the twins couldn't survive on the human genes alone, as their cells slowly lost coherence and disintegrated in front of Sol and Giselle. She knew that the pain they both felt would have to be muted in the edit, but right now she had no option but to feel the raw pain tearing into her soul, even more painful than the time Athena had thrown her into the campfire one night during a party many moons ago. Thankfully, she was able to mute Sol's emote to a dull roar, because she didn't think they could take any more inputs without blowing a buffer. The entire village was devastated by the loss, as the remains of the twins were buried in the right place and allowed to rest in peace. At the ceremony, wiping away her tears, she quietly wondered what her audience would think of that show, as Zero emoted his love and compassion into her mind, helping to soothe the pain with his music and light show. Giselle had put her sorrow into gardening, learning from the woman of the village how to grow food and from the shaman how to grow medicinal herbs. Not that she needed either. Her nanotechnology could simply absorb whatever her human-shaped body needed through the soles of her feet if she wished it. But there was something healing and appealing about growing food instead of constructing it, or absorbing atoms from the environment. It tasted better for one thing, and it definitely had more vitality to it compared to the assembled meals on board the ship. She had never actually watched assembled food with the Gaia field sensor activated, so she had no frame of reference other than one shared to her at a party one night. The food from the communal gardens positively radiated with it, as did the herbs from the family garden. The audience especially loved the herbs that she carefully and lovingly tended for Sol, and which he liked to smoke on the full moon to help ease his pain and enjoy the party. It was going to be many moons until Sol was properly healed, said the shaman. Athena liked to join him sometimes, sharing his peace pipe while quietly remembering the twins and what they had wanted for their adventure. She hadn't needed to be told that it wasn't cool to reflect Sol for a while. She knew without having to be told. As Giselle continued her weeding, remembering Athena's last dance and wondering what she might have in store for them all this time, she took a few seeds out of a pocket in her apron and placed them under her tongue for a few minutes as she had been taught. She resisted the temptation to just use her nano to do the job quickly, and patiently allowed her Gaia field to infuse the seeds with her love, imagining the health, wealth and happiness memes, and the healing effect that she desired for her beloved family and for their friends. When she felt they were ready, she poked a hole in the freshly weeded earth with her toe, allowing a small sample of any toxins from her body to flow into the soft, dark earth, and thus providing the seed bed with an additional data set. She spat the seeds out of her mouth into her hands, held them to her mouth for a few ticks, and slowly breathed onto them, warming them slightly. Opening her hands, she held the seeds up to the sky, allowing the planets and other celestial bodies to imprint their energy upon the seeds so that they could reset their TTLs and synchronise their clocks. She wasn't sure that this step was absolutely necessary, but the shaman had been more than adamant than even Zero could manage, and he was a stubborn bastard on a good day. Without drying the saliva off of the seeds, she placed each into one of the holes she had prepared, carefully spat into each hole, and then gently covered the seeds in soil. They would be ready for watering in 3 or 4 days, and she set her clock in her mind as a gentle reminder. The full moon was approaching, and she'd be busy with the preparations. Athena had a special surprise for them, and that usually spelt trouble. The lover memes are encoded in the part of our brains called the neocortex, which is responsible for higher order abstract functions such as thought and language. The behaviours and instincts encoded here include our ability to feel love, to nurture our young, to imagine a better future, to express ourselves through language and to create works of art, music and machines, to wonder at the mysteries of life, to spot patterns amongst the chaos, to seek harmony, peace and tranquility, cooperation with our friends and compassion for our enemies. Looking at the world today, I say we could use a bit more of that. If a man uses his hands, he is a worker. If a man uses his head, he is a craftsman. If a man uses his heart, he is an artist. That's what artists do. We create stuff. We bring new ideas into the world, not for money, but for the love of it. The truth is, we probably do it for nothing. In fact, many of us do. It's also really humbling when someone appreciates our efforts enough to put some food or coin on the table so that we can do more of it. By the way, I believe that the phthalates in the water and the fish and the coatings of many pharmaceutical pills have the effect of shutting down whole sections of the neocortex. I can't say for sure, I'm no scientist, but it's just my hunch as an engineer, my instinct. If I'm right, maybe that's what is causing so many people in the Western world to slide into apathy, depression and suicide when they are under too much stress. Why do you think so many people are on happy pills these days? Could it be because there's something in the water? Could it be as simple as that? Surely we must have learned from the lessons of the past. Sometimes I feel like a plumber in ancient Rome, noticing that the rich and famous customers who could afford the luxury of lead piping were going a bit bonkers. When I communicate with some people these days, it's honestly like dealing with a bunch of feebles. They seem dazed and confused, angry, impatient, depressed, and completely unable to focus on important long-term strategic issues. Believe it or not, it took a Herculean effort to get my team in London to order spring water for the office in glass bottles instead of plastic, and take as many as they needed home with them for friends and family, and to stay off the fish for a while. They got it in the end, and are now enjoying a few benefits that have surprised a few of the bright ones. That's the other areas the president of the Korean National Information Society Agency is talking about regarding the Homo interneticus kids in South Korea. Like I said, eugenics has been going on for a bloody long time. It can only be described as a competitive advantage. It's a lot like how the kids communicate in the TV series Touch, but you have to have a bit of Asperger's in your water to click with it. Humanity 2 has it, Humanity 1 doesn't. In a nutshell, it's evolution. We think the same things at the same time. In my next book, The Dare, I'll explain the science of it and how it works. For now, imagine the mirror cells in your brain resonating in harmony with the mirror cells in about 1 million other brains over a natural network that has evolved from the Einstein-Pavlovsky-Rosen experiment. This experiment is best described in Fritjof Capra's book, The Turning Point, and will help you to understand how it works on a quantum level. You'll also need to properly understand the logic of the Einstein-Beard conflation, particularly with regard to thoughts become things. The mercury and aluminium in the vaccines we receive as babies activates certain cells. The phthalates in the water, fish and pills shut these cells down. Got it? Chapter 10. Natural Justice. I'd like to propose a new punishment for those feebles convicted of serious criminal offences: sterilisation. For some, even the threat of a jail sentence, of losing one's freedom, doesn't deter them from committing their heinous crimes. Perhaps the threat of losing his balls might be a better deterrent for a potential fraudster, pedophile, rapist or murderer. Naturally, there ought to be some leeway. We don't want folks to think that we lack compassion or aren't prepared to give people the benefit of a second chance to take responsibility for their behaviours and to seek help. I'd suggest a 3 strikes policy. Once a criminal has been convicted of any crime twice in the past, he or she is clearly incapable of controlling their own natural instincts. Should they transgress a 3rd time, they will be sterilised as humanely as possible, which will mean that their genetically encoded behaviours and instincts will not be passed on to any future offspring. There simply won't be any. Of course, they might already have had children, and some of those children might already be troublesome. Within a few generations, however, I would say that criminal or parasitic behaviour would be very much on the decline, as the behaviours, instincts and values encoded within that set of memes are removed from the meme pool. In the Muslim world, the punishment for child abuse is that the perpetrator would have one of their hands cut off. It took just 1 generation to virtually eliminate child abuse from their culture. It might sound harsh, but it's been an undeniably effective strategy. Men who throw acid in their wives' faces or set them on fire don't deserve much sympathy, but we'd rather not waste a bullet. In our culture, I'd suggest that removing a ring finger ought to do the trick, and let the rest of us know that they're just not worth breeding with. They just don't have the balls for it, or the ovaries. To further protect the greater population and society from odious criminal or parasitic behaviours, I believe that before, or shortly after, they have children, prospective parents should be required to educate themselves properly with regard to having kids. We don't allow drivers onto our roads without first obtaining a driver's licence. Why should it be any different with regards to raising children? Such a scheme would firstly involve education about how to properly raise a family, means testing to determine whether the parents have the financial resources to properly provide for their family, and various tests to identify the risks of any serious genetic disorders. Secondly, the prospective parents might be encouraged to pass an examination demonstrating that they understand how to properly raise a family, just as a driving test confirms proper control of a vehicle and a thorough understanding of the rules of the road. In my opinion, Brian Tracy's Phoenix seminar would be a great start. Chapter 11. The Evolution of Democracy. They say that democracy might not be perfect, but it's proven to be a lot more perfect than the alternatives. The very first thing I'd do, if I was in charge, would be to eliminate all forms of income taxation, import and export duties, death duties, capital gains taxes, etc. and so forth, and replace it with a simple multi-tiered tax on spending, which I call a universal sales tax. That's a simple equation of 6 of one and half a dozen of the other. Any decent economist with half a brain should be able to do the maths. Fritjof Kapra's excellent book, The Turning Point, points the way forward towards a holistic systems-based approach to life, not just to economics, but to many other areas too. Life's basic necessities such as food, shelter, education, and healthcare might be taxed at a lower rate so as to make it more affordable for low-income families, whereas luxury items such as restaurant meals, vehicles, plant and machinery, entertainment, etc. and so forth would be taxed at a higher rate. This would create a much simpler and fairer tax regime to generate the funds that our governments require in order to build and maintain infrastructure on behalf of the population they serve. This system of taxation would be so much easier, more efficient and cost-effective for the governments of the world to administer. They would no longer need to account for each and every employee's income, and employers would not be required to waste their valuable time, energy and resources on the red tape of pay-as-you-earn calculations every month. The scheme would be administered by retailers and other providers of goods and services, as the current GST system already is. Income tax inspectors and the expensive, bloated computer systems that they use to monitor the population would both become redundant. This simple form of taxation would also encourage savings. If people wanted to save their money, they could simply economise for a while and retain more of their earnings. Investors would have more disposable income and savings to invest in new ventures, thereby creating new employment opportunities. Similarly, the wealthy would have more of their income in hand to spend as they see fit. When they do, that expenditure will trickle down and will create jobs. I also suggest that people convicted of 3 or more criminal offences would lose their right to vote after the 3 strikes policy comes into effect. In other words, such idiots are not only removing their future offspring from our culture, they will also be denied any influence on the laws of the land. In time, I believe that we can, and should, evolve a more efficient democratic system, one based on consensus and the use of sophisticated technology to ensure that the prevalent wishes of the people are effectively communicated to our elected leaders and officials in real time. Ultimately, I reckon that humanity has to find better ways to agree with each other than through guns, germs and steel. Networked minds help a lot. It only takes a heartbeat for everyone to spin an idea around over the net, evolve a number of solutions in our heads, and feel the one we like the best. With regard to the sale of state-owned assets, we are firmly against it. That infrastructure was bought and paid for through taxes raised from the people. It belongs to the people, not to the government. Selling the family jewels to elite corporations who only care about the bottom line just isn't good for business. The welfare state also needs to be reconsidered. There are generations of people who have no interest in working or contributing to our society in any meaningful way. They are consummate professionals at milking the system for all it's worth, while those genuinely in need are turned away at the front door. As it currently stands, the system we see is no better than an ambulance at the bottom of a cliff. Wouldn't it be more sensible to put a fence at the top? With the advance of robotics and AI, many people will be out of work in the coming years. We need a universal basic income scheme. It's not right that lazy, immoral people with hearts and minds filled with rage at the so-called injustices of this world, addicted to legal drugs such as alcohol and tobacco, and illegal street drugs such as methamphetamines, cocaine and heroin, and cannabis, and resulting in massive profits for both criminal gangs and governments alike. What's worse is that these uneducated lower socio-economic groups are breeding at a much faster rate than the more educated and intelligent among us. That system of welfare can only end badly for us all. We like the South African and Dutch models. If someone is made redundant, for example, the state will pay a healthy proportion of their income for a finite amount of time. This gives families a wee bit of leeway to get through a difficult situation without requiring that they first lose all of their assets and wealth, and gives them a bit of breathing space to contemplate looking for a new job, writing a book, or starting a new business, without the fear associated with contemplating the imminent collapse of everything that they care about. As more and more people lose their jobs as a result of advances in artificial intelligence, robotics, nanotechnology, etc., we are going to need a universal basic income, an amount paid to every citizen regardless of age, gender, status or income, no strings attached. It would be enough to live on and would enable that citizen a life of creative leisure. They could write books, make films, make music, paint, carve, weld, whatever floats your boat. Healthcare is another topic close to our hearts. The Chinese used to have an awesome tradition where the patient only paid the doctor when he or she is well. It then becomes very much in the interest of the doctor to work closely with the patient to effect a cure. We wouldn't take our car in for a service and expect to pay for shoddy workmanship. Why should our health treatment be any different? In this system, it would be very much in the commercial interests of health professionals to keep us healthy, fit and active. This is completely at odds with the American tradition of profiting from people's illnesses and diseases. It's no wonder that President Obama had such a difficult time bringing about his welfare reforms. Just imagine what the world would look like if molecular nanotechnology-based medicine had to be bought and paid for, rather than simply embedded in the healthy, nutritious foods that we eat every day. It would mean free healthcare for all until the end of time. With regards to education, our opinion is that it should be free for all who want it. More than that, we believe that students should in fact be paid to study, as long as they continue to pass their examinations. They should also be given the very latest and best technology and learning environments, and teachers should be paid according to the results of their students. Upon completion of their degree, students could be given a grant or a prize, or whatever you prefer to call it, and invited to go out into the world and enjoy their freedom. I reckon $1 million is about right for a PhD. What do you think? The police also need to take a wee look in the mirror. When my dad was a senior sergeant, he reckoned that he spent more time dealing with dodgy young cops than he ever did with actual criminals. He didn't want anything to do with the Red Squad or the Blue Squad during the Springbok riots and left the force as a result of that moral dilemma. I've never been more proud of him, despite the hardships that our family endured since he made that choice. Perhaps it's time we made drug testing compulsory for all members of the police force. I mean, none of them take drugs, right? They have nothing to fear from such screening against the very drugs they are supposed to be protecting the rest of us against, right? Suffice to say, we are also very much against the sale of valuable farmland to offshore corporations seeking the gold, black gold, green gold and white gold and blue gold that New Zealand has in abundance. New Zealand is for New Zealanders, China is for China, America is for Americans, etc. and so forth. When I grew up here, we didn't need to lock our homes or worry about leaving the keys in the ignition. We had nothing to fear. I'd like to return to that sort of a lifestyle. What about you? Chapter 12. Money is no object. The things in life that really matter are not things. As far as I'm concerned, money isn't important, unless you don't have any, in which case it becomes fucking important. There have been times in my life when I just didn't have enough money even for food. I know what happens when I'm hungry. I get more creative, more energised, more focused, and ultimately more manic. Just like Aang in the kids' cartoon version of Avatar, I go into a different, accelerated state of mind. It's in that state of mind where I usually figure things out. I spot patterns or solve a problem, my eureka moments, when for me another aspect of the truth emerges, like the mist in the morning, burning away the heat of the sun to reveal a whole new landscape in the valley below. Sometimes the view isn't very pretty. When I look at the global financial system, I can't tell what the difference is between it and your average pyramid selling scheme. Someone at the top makes up a number which is divided according to territory and eventually to the high street banks that we all use every day. What I see is a system that attracts sociopathic egomaniacs like bees to honey. I met plenty of them while working in the city for almost 20 years. Thankfully, that system is now collapsing, imploding in upon itself as the truth of their false and misleading schemes becomes more and more apparent. The beast is feeding off of that pain. It's what gives it pleasure, what feeds it. Now that's an ugly truth. In time, I'd like to delete money from our culture, to turn it sideways. I just don't think that we need it. How many millions of years has humanity been on this rock without money? In the dawning age of molecular nanotechnology, we will be able, literally, to just imagine a new handbag, or rocket engine, or whatever else floats your boat. Sometimes later, there it is, free of charge. Have a nice day. If we all just accept that none of us have any money, nor any need for it, we can just get on with doing what we love doing. As the musician Tikitane puts it, we do it for the love of it. For some people, that's gardening. For others, music production, software development, or healing work. Whatever floats your boat. Me, I like tinkering around in my shed, inventing new things. My latest invention is the photolyzer, a cheap, mass-produced device which uses a chemical process called photolysis to convert carbon dioxide, seawater, and ultra-high-frequency ultraviolet light into hydrogen, oxygen, and ozone. I've always thought that ideas are the currency of the future. The good ideas will prevail and in time generate income. I see it all around me. For example, some friends down the road own an organic avocado orchard. In a market where many growers are getting a bill after their crops have been picked, packed and exported, they're making a fair profit from loyal customers all over New Zealand, are able to afford a new car every few years, and take holidays abroad whenever they want to. Their route to market consists of a courier service. There are very few people clipping the ticket between them and the people eating their produce. Their avocados are amazing. They gave me a box when I was in Ward 17, and it was a significant factor in my quick recovery. Who was it who said, let food be thy medicine? I'm also seeing the same thing with the company's clients. When they do well, we do well, because they buy more servers, bandwidth and services from us. Some of our clients are starting to do very well indeed, because they have worthy ideas, disruptive ideas even. I often told my clients, if you want a server, go talk to them. If you want a service, come and talk to us. Most of our clients click with that mean. It's not about being the cheapest. It's about providing a level of service that suits their needs and for a fair price. Determining what's a fair price is easy when you have a proper solutions catalogue, one that we're happy to share with some of our large clients. because it demonstrates fair value for money, creates trust between our respective organisations. In his book Strategic Partnering, Tony Lendrum explains how to transform the economics of our commercial agreements into a well-understood win-win dynamic. The best example given is Sun Chemical Corporation, who at the time was providing explosives to the Australian mining industry. Instead of the traditional model of deriving a profit from selling more and more tonnes of TNT, they agreed new terms where Sun Chemicals paid according to the tonnes of ore successfully extracted. Their chemical engineers were then highly motivated to get creative and dream up more efficient explosions in the way of shaped charges and innovative compounds, which essentially meant that fewer chemicals were required to extract the same amount of rock. A similar win-win approach is now working well for our company. Our engineers are highly motivated to design and build solutions that are highly reliable, perform in excess of expectations, and both parties to the contract end up winning, collaborating, sharing ideas, strengths and knowledge, jointly working together to create new products and sharing both the commercial risk and the reward. In my experience, it's a lot more fun than competing with each other. Circular arguments belong on a racetrack. In all of my business adventures, I always seek to find ways to cooperate and collaborate with my fellow entrepreneurs and with my friends. Competing for finite resources is a thing of the past. It just doesn't work anymore. It's a zero-sum game with no winners, except maybe for lawyers. Inside our culture, the internet is our route to market for our cultural exports. Our music videos, ebooks, documentaries and software developments. Within our culture, we get paid to do what we love doing. We get paid to party. Chapter 13. Towards a New Horizon. My goal with this book is to kick off a global evolution of culture, one where enough men, women and children on this planet rise as one voice and agree. Enough is enough. What do we want? Never-ending war? Or love, peace and harmony? And a global consensus that we need to fix this problem once and for all. As Jimi Hendrix puts it so poetically, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace. I most certainly click with that, as do all of my friends and clients on the net. I call it the Campaign for World Peace. I think you'll agree it's an infectious idea. I hope that in time you'll tell your friends, family and community about this campaign and contribute your own thoughts and efforts to the cause, and we can very quickly make this dream come true, simply by talking about it with your mates. When you put smart mums together with smart dads, then give the kids plenty of healthy, nutritious food, clean water, lots of love, great life experiences and awesome schools, what do you get? You get smarter kids. As Khalil Gibran puts it in his book The Prophet, our children come through us, not from us. They are life's longing for itself. New Zealand was an amazing place to grow up in, but it was hard on me. Anybody with a splash of Asperger's in their water knows what it's like. To know that you're not popular, mostly because you just plain don't understand the social rules. But we were really good at maths, music, chemistry, physics, engineering, anything involving patterns. I like circles. Guess what my favourite number is? Sadly, it also makes us quite vulnerable to people who are deceitful and manipulative, people with their own agenda. What happened to Alan Turing, Nikola Tesla, Kurt Cobain, and countless other beautiful minds is a tragedy. Right, love? It's no surprise that growing up, I learned real fast that it wasn't clever to show my intelligence or reveal my plans and ideas to the wrong sort of personality. What I went through was hell, but you have to understand that I did it to myself. It was conscious and deliberate, and all part of a grand adventure, an impossible mission. What got me through it was music, real music, music that healed me and made the pain go away. I hope you understand now why I just want to enjoy the company of like-minded friends with guitars, drums, keyboards, electric violins, and unrestrained raw talent, as I tend to my various projects and campaigns. I call it the Campaign for Real Music, and when my plan works out, I hope that the Tranquility Sessions will be a huge hit with many people like me all over the world, as we work hard to fix this problem for the good of us all. The thing I enjoy most about my place is that I can tell all the kids that they don't need to pretend with me. I can see that they're bright. The mirror cells in my brain click with the mirror cells in theirs, and in a heartbeat, they know that I'm not bullshitting them. It's awesome to then just sit back and watch them relax and have a great time. In between parties, though, we have work to do. A planetary-sized fuck-up that needs fixing. I could definitely use a hand, though, so who wants to help? Chapter 14. The Evolution of Memes. The truth is that this book was not actually intended to be read by humans. I've written it the way I have, knowing that smart dudes who designed and built Watson, the AI program that evolved to thrash two world-class Jeopardy champions, are now using a much more evolved version of this powerful tool to help solve the mysteries of the universe. Much like Captain Kirk asking the computer on board the Starship Enterprise some hypothetical questions regarding some out-there problem, allowing the computer to evolve a winning strategy to questions such as, how do we save the planet? Machine intelligence is a lot more sophisticated than you might think these days. The way it has evolved is simply beyond the capacity of mankind to comprehend or predict. The Human Genome Project is nothing else but maths, relatively simple combinations of DNA sequences that can be loaded into a machine learning algorithm very similar to the techniques which allow machine minds to understand our languages and our alphabets. It would take many thousands of years and countless millions of human minds to evolve a winning strategy to bring about molecular nanotechnology. Machine minds, properly configured, can evolve countless solutions in a comparatively short time, about 5 minutes on a quantum supercomputer. The big question is which solution for molecular nanotechnology will be chosen. One that has been selected for by elitists with an agenda, or one that has been decided upon by the people of this planet. The TV show Person of Interest features a machine mind with inputs all over New York. The Deuce machine sniffs the entire planet, loading suitable genetic samples into the machine, allowing it to use techniques such as heuristics, machine learning, chaos theory, and artificial intelligence across a wide sample size of people with similar, healthy values and beliefs, will enable the system to evolve a much better solution to the problems the world faces today. After all, that's the whole point of the internet: Google, YouTube, Facebook, Amazon, JustGiving, Jamie Oliver's Food Revolution, Betfair, EarthSim, and countless other social networking websites, as predicted way back in 1990 by K. Eric Drexler in his book Engines of Creation. These websites allow us to like the things that we like and sometimes purchase, to ignore the things that we don't like, and to comment on the memes that are important to us. It's a powerful way to help calibrate the Deuce machine as it analyses the data in the back end of these very large and popular websites, thereby providing the necessary feedback, the same aha moment that is plain to see in the documentary The World's Smartest Machine, near the end of the project, when the engineers finally understand the secret of machine intelligence and elevate Watson's IQ into the stratosphere. As with chaos theory, it's all about the feedback, about closing the loop. I believe that we need a better solution to fixing the problems of our world than the one currently being imagined by the elite on this planet. This book is intended to recalibrate the human minds that have been programming the inputs to the Deuce machine so that we end up with a much better solution to a very old problem, getting rid of some quite nasty memes that are behind current thinking with regards to the evolution of an answer. It's called a turnaround, and I doubt that the folks who think they control the Deuce machine will be very happy about it. Tough. The way to achieve this turnaround is to spread this book and to like the memes contained within it, such as the document itself, any of the ideas that you click with, the books listed, the music videos, etc. and so forth. All you have to do is go online and talk about it with your friends. That's it. A friend up the road is a farmer with a few good stories about tractors. He reckons you can solve anything if you have a big enough tractor. Anyway, he also taught me that if you want good beef, you need to look after the grass. He's right, of course. It's all about understanding the trim tabs at the beginning of the process that can cause a massive impact at the end result. In chaos theory, it's known as a butterfly effect, where the flap of a butterfly's wings in Brazil might eventually result in a tornado in Texas. When enough people agree with me, make comments online, purchase the books and music videos I've suggested, counter my arguments with their own, etc. and so forth, this is all the input that the Deuce machine needs as it evolves solutions according to our wishes. Our thoughts, beliefs, values, aspirations, blood samples, even our doubts, all of that is like the blades of grass that result in good beef. If I'm right, I get paid to party and help heal us all with our real music and with our love, everything I'm imagining for our culture, an evolved libertarian meritocracy based on truth, values, morals, good science, consensus, creativity, love, and whatever other memes we want to pass on to our children's children, and minus many of the memes that got us into this mess in the first place. Like Einstein says, you can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that created the problem. He also said that you can't keep repeating the same thing again and again and again and expect a different result. Nobody listened, so he said it again. Joking aside, chaos theory suggests that even Einstein was wrong on that one. You can't predict the outcome from even a simple equation such as z equals z squared plus c. That's nature for you, the chaos of evolution. Like Einstein, I also hate repeating myself. It's more painful for me than you can imagine when the lights go out. That's why I build computer systems the way that I do. Another famous physicist, Richard Feynman, agrees with me, I think, when he wrote, "I hate to die twice. It's so boring." Invention is the mother of all necessity. There has always been a healthy dynamic between engineers and scientists. Typically, some bloke mucks around in a shed and notices something about something, and whole new technologies or ways of understanding our physical reality emerge, patterns from the chaos. Then another sort of clever bloke comes along and works out the maths of it. I'm usually one of the former, a tinkerer. Molecular nanotechnology can fix the problems of this planet quite easily, but it's an extremely dangerous technology, especially if it falls into the wrong hands. My opinion is that the keys to this technology belong in the hands of the people of this planet and simply can't be left in the hands of elitists. Otherwise, we're just going to get more of what we've had in the past as we march into the future. Once we correct the input errors in the machine learning algorithms of the Deuce machine, a different solution will emerge, and maybe, just maybe, humanity can reach for the stars. In his book Engines of Creation, Drexler explains the amazing revolution in machine building, molecular nanotechnology. Drexler, the leading expert in the field, shows how nanotechnology will build machines 1,000 times smaller than a microchip, or the same size as an enzyme, and argues how these nanobots could transform research into all areas of our lives, from within the heart of the living cell to the depths of space itself. Nanobots will be able to analyse and construct virtually anything, atomic layer by atomic layer, and might be programmed to enter individual human cells to repair damage or destroy diseases. Or small machines could be sent into outer space to construct spaceships or complex scientific equipment out of basic ingredients that need be nothing more than earth or air. Beyond belief? Research scientists around the world are already laying the foundations, and they point to this book as their inspiration. In the chapters Engines of Destruction and Strategies in Survival, Drexler warns us of the immediate danger this technology poses if it makes its way into the hands and minds that are fundamentally motivated by power, evil, incompetence, and sloth. If you think eugenics is a Pandora's box, molecular nanotechnology is about 1 billion times more dangerous to open if it were to be opened by the wrong sort of feeble mindset. Nanotechnology promises the ability to simply suck the plastic and chemical soup out of the oceans, our bodies, and every living thing on this planet, dump the carbon dioxide deep back within the earth, cure cancer and all manner of other disease, and if necessary, store our physical bodies in biostasis until the technology matures such that people can be resurrected at a future date. Once the mess has been cleaned up, we can then construct massive habitats in space for the continued expansion of the human race. All of us, even the bad guys. Drexler warns us that in a finite universe, unchecked human population growth will eventually consume all of the resources of the universe, just as these faulty memes have pretty nearly destroyed the Earth itself. Clearly, this is not an outcome that any advanced extraterrestrial culture would allow, should they be watching humanity right now, trying to decide what to do with us. As brilliant as Drexler is, though, even he has to concede that he may in fact be wrong about life force, the human spirit, and the God within. Perhaps Drexler and a number of his contemporaries may now need to reflect upon some of their own meme sets. Personally, I'm in favour of Pascal's choice. It's better to believe in God, live a good life, and be wrong about God, than it would be to dismiss that meme and upon death, actual death, discover that in fact God does exist. I understand the rational scientific meme set with regards to collections of atoms not having any hocus-pocus energy about it, but I prefer it my way. So do all of my mates. It also seems that many leading scientists are now coming to the same conclusion. According to Professor Jim Al-Khalili of the University of Surrey, on a recent YouTube video broadcast on Earhart Toll's internet TV channel, his recent broadcast is completely at odds with his point of view in the documentary The Secret Life of Chaos. It seems that many scientists these days are undergoing something of a paradigm shift. So, who wrote you, Mr. Drexler? Your friend Richard Stallman once wrote that open source is a development methodology and free software is a social movement. It is a strategy that has worked brilliantly for the communal development of the freely available Linux operating system. It can work for the development of molecular nanotechnology too, and it can also work for the evolution of humanity. But only if we all collectively agree that it's the best way forward. I especially took note of the young lad at the end of the documentary Oceans of Plastic. It's a great idea. Sometimes kids can say the most enlightening things if you just listen carefully. Chapter 16. How many sides does a circle have? The answer, of course, is 2, an outside and an inside. Here on the inside of reality, what I like to call the multiverse, it's a nice place, quite literally heaven on earth. I can only imagine what life is like for those still on the outside. When we imagined up the multiverse, an infinite number of infinite universes, we deliberately made it so that people here can't perceive what is going on in the universe outside. Quite simply, we just don't want to know. It would be counterproductive to our goals and ambitions, and not something that we wish to focus upon. It simply wouldn't serve us. We'd rather not contemplate what some Asian businessman enjoyed for his lunch at the Good Luck With That club. You become what you focus on, right? Thoughts become things. However, I do get little clues from friends I trust, little signals that give me a nice, fair idea and occasionally a bloody good chuckle. In our culture, we love nice surprises. That's what floats our boat. I'm also aware that whatever is on the outside is a bit pissed off with me. Once again, we have defeated an old enemy, one that, just like the Buddha consciousness deep within me, is older than time itself. This time around, though, me and my mates have fixed the problem once and for all. Like the stone game, if you understand the logic, you can win every time, as long as you start the game and not your opponent. It's the same deal with chess or any other game of logic. We can't wait to play chess with the current world champion Magnus Carlsen, just as long as we get to choose his opponent. We have our doubts that we'll see him anytime real soon. He knows that even he can't win against the ultimate player of games. Like Magnus, in our culture we only play games that we know we can win. If we win, the beast loses. If the beast wins, the beast loses. If the beast loses, we win. Our enemy can sense us. It knows that we're here, but wherever it looks, all it can see is its own evil nature, reflected back at it, magnified. Like I said in the beginning, I do still like lasers. That's what's doing its head in. The more it looks, the more pain it inflicts upon itself. The truth is that the beast does not like its own image. What can I say? Calm as a bitch. On the other hand, people whose hearts and minds click with the goals and aspirations of our culture to build a better world will find themselves most welcome here on the inside as we contemplate our campaign for world peace. Until the end of time, the gatekeepers to our culture, those at the boundary between the old universe and the new multiverse, will ensure that we have everything that we need. Believe me, it needs us a lot more than we need it. Out there beyond hyperspace, it might be an evil creature, but it's caught on the horns of a dilemma, and seeking to destroy what we've created inside reality, it's only destroying itself, where it is quite firmly stuck on the outside. It's a stalemate, a Mexican standoff called mutually assured destruction. The beast doesn't like it, not one little bit, but it can't do anything about it. Believe me, it's tried. That's what's kept me and my mates occupied for the last few years and delayed our plans. Understanding the true nature of the beast and learning how to defeat it once and for all by wrapping it up inside of an infinite loop of logic. Sometimes you have to fight fire with fire. It's been bonkers, a fight to the bitter end. Ultimately, though, the light beats the dark every time. A word of warning, though. Enlightenment is not for the faint of heart. You have to want it, and you have to choose it. When your time comes, I hope that you make the right choice for yourself and for the good of us all. I hope that this book has been useful, interesting, informative, and helpful for you. If you feel so inclined, I'd be very grateful indeed if you could please recommend it to others so that we can get the show on the road, seize control of our own destiny, and reach for the stars. And now for the biggest truth of them all, number 88. The truth is whatever you want it to be. Thoughts become things, right? So let's put all of our collective minds onto focusing on what we do want. A benevolent race of post-human souls known as culture, with a massive starship complete with a nanotronic brain the size of a planet, and filled with all of the nanotechnology tools that are needed to solve this problem once and for all. Google chrysalis if you need help with your personal journey of transformation. I have friends in high places all over this planet who are ready, willing and able to help with the process, but only if you ask for it, and only if you mean it. In the West it's called a manic episode, in the East it's called a kundalini experience. I'm not going to bullshit you, it's bonkers and it does take time to come down off of it and back to reality. It took me almost 2 years to recompile myself and get used to my new mind, but believe me, it's worth the trip. Once you have seen the light and encoded more harmonious memes into your water, a blood sample can be taken the next time you visit your med lab, loaded into the juice machine's pattern learning algorithms, and we can hit the go button to bootstrap our new human culture and reach for the stars. And no matter what happens in the multiverse, remember this: I will love you until the end of time.